Hello guys, I'm back from another video and today we're talking about what if Belle had the ability to summon heroic spirits. So in the last video we talked about how after, a good, day's work, or at least, basically going through the dungeon, they would decide to basically go and stay at a nearby, dungeon floor. And after setting up camp and basically, Izuku was, not Izuku, I meant Belle, was selected to become the lookout with the others. You know, with the others, as in some like random like familiar members from random familias, they would start setting up camp, or at least setting up their their lookout. As after a while, basically checking the area, they would notice the sounds of like a battle horn. And after looking around, they would see a horde of monsters, and they're being led by a large, not really large, but more like a normal sized goblin, with an oversized sword. Like, just imagine one of those, like, what's the name of that, that really small Hillishirl? Basically, the ones that are basically, like, the mages of the group. I can't remember the actual name of those, specific Hillishirls, but just imagine that, but wielding the swords of, like, or axes of, like, of a, what is that called? The big Hillishirls, or whatever you want to call them. The equivalent of, like, a troll, or, ogre. As after seeing this, not Izuku, I meant Belle, would basically jump into the fray and would start fighting all of them. After a while of fighting, and with a bit of help with his, heroic spirit and also some of his, specially made double phantasms, they would decide to basically finish up sleeping. And after, waking up, everybody would start leaving to finally go to the 52nd floor, but after arriving, they would notice an entire civilization, which they were confused, until they would get a message from the guild. Apparently, the reason why they're there is basically just like, bring supplies and things of that sort. The reason why they were told to do this is because, for some odd reason, the people that were meant to do that, well, they're currently tired and sick. I've forgotten that part, and not only that, apparently, the reason why they're lied to is because, if they do tell the truth, well, they would instantly just like, let him die. Anyway, so after arriving at the large ass, the large ass village, in the dungeon, they would be meted by the mayor, and after showing them around and meeting with you know, the so-called King of Adventures, they would just, end up basically like, finishing up their tour and would be, told to basically rest outside of the village. And so, after, waking up early in the morning, they would start leaving to go to the town and would start, looking around. But until they would get an encounter with the so-called, King of Adventurers, where they, where he would start, bullying everybody, and even telling them that they're weaker compared to him. Until Izuku came in and, let's just say he was not really impressed and even laughed at him. But when he basically showed off his true personality, well, let's just say the guy was instantly doomed at the start, where he basically get a full ass whooping, and I mean a full ass whooping. I mean, he literally got a knuckle sandwich, a literal like a literal like foot up the ass, and things of that sort. And even a bit of insults, which by the way caused a lot of people to basically think that would be satisfying to see him basically getting knocked down a peg. And so after doing all of that, he was brought to the hospital to basically recover. And after, that, Izuku would start leaving, but before he can, he would get a contact, he was told to basically go to, to the mayor, or at least, the mayor's wanting to talk to him. And after arriving there, he would be told that the reason why they were brought here as well is because apparently some monsters have been terrorizing the place, so they need some help to basically stop them. And so, after being told of this, Belle would accept this, this challenge, including the other, familiar members, at least other familias, with them. And so, after doing so, they would basically go back to, go back to their, little, like, base of operations and would start to fall asleep. So, yeah, so, that is basically what happened last episode. And so, let us talk about what happens next, ladies and gents. So, we currently see, the other familias getting ready for tonight. Because now it's finally the day where apparently some monsters are going to be terrorizing the entire, like, area. The fuck is that sound? Do you hear that? Yeah, that. The fuck? I just. Ugh. Whatever now. Wait for a second. Anyway, guys, continuing on with the episode, as everybody's basically getting ready for for the day, as in tonight, as in, the day that is where there's supposed to be a army of monsters that's going to be terrorizing the town. As not Izuku, I meant Belle is basically getting ready. As for his heroic spirits, they're also getting ready. All of them basically getting ready their weapons, and as for Koyanskaya herself, Koyanskaya is basically setting up her guns and also some traps. As after doing so, we also see Astolfo. Yeah, one of them is the trap. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I just couldn't help myself. As after Bell basically, you know, basically sets up the traps, he would say this. So, guys, he would say, as some of his heroics would start looking at him, more specifically, Emiya, and also, Gilgamesh, as he would see this. Hey, Emiya, get ready your noble phantasm. As for you, Gilgamesh, get ready your noble phantasm as well, in case if they decide to, break the front line, he would say. As Gilgamesh would say this. Sure, he would say. As he would say this. Nobody can easily defeat me. After all, the power of Uruk's protection is absolute, he would say. As after saying that, he would start looking at, Emiya, as he would say this. At your liege, he would say. As he would spin his guns around, as he would get ready his, his like pistol slash, Kancho and Bakia combination. As he would say this. Good. Now, as some of the other, familiars would basically get ready their weapons, basically acting as the front line, the other one, and the further ones being, being the 10th line, which are basically the 10th line defense, that are basically like, the last defense of the, sort of like last defense of the, of the village, as the people there, or at least the citizens there, are basically, afraid knowing that the monsters are probably going to break through. But unfortunately, it's absolutely not. They're not going to, there's no way that they're able to basically break in. And as for Bell himself, Bell would basically get ready with his, upgraded, gun. In this case, just imagine a large-ass sniper rifle. Just imagine Black Barrel, as in, Mashu's, new Noble Phantasm. Sort of. I mean, it's more like, her Noble Phantasm, or at least her shield, basically in gun form. As he would say this. Now, we better just wait, he would say. As one of them specifically, one of the members of the, Loki family would say this. Hey, Izuku, he would say. Not Izuku, I meant Bell, he would say. As he would say this. Yes, he would say. As he would look towards, the Loki familiar member. As he would say this. Well, Bet wanted to tell you this. He would say, as he would say this. What is it exactly, he would say. As he would say this. Well, she said good luck, which, still confuses me to a degree, to say the least, he would say. As he would say this. Well, we are dating, he would say. As he would say this. Excuse me, what? As he would say this. Yeah. Didn't you, as he would say this. Did you got Stockholm Syndrome or something? Because the last time that you got kidnapped is... Don't tell me that you started to become a masochist, he would say. As he would say this. What? Heavens no, he would say. As he would say this. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna stay away from you for a bit, he would say. As he would say this. He would just sigh a little bit. As, Emiya would laugh a little bit, including Gilgamesh. As he would say this. Oh, shut up, he would say. As Gilgamesh would say this. Anyway, so... As he would start looking towards the front line, as everybody is basically getting ready in case of the monsters coming by. And soon enough, they would hear the sound of horns. They would hear the sound of... So, they would hear that as everybody would just look over at the direction of the noise. As you would see the entrance where supposedly they came from, and it was currently flooded by several monsters. As these several monsters can be, categorized as chaotic to say the least. Some of them having multiple parts, like one of them literally has, the horse's legs, while another has, wings, and also, and others having multiple heads. As the leader of them seems to be a large ass, troll. The troll seems to be wearing, a tank top and shorts and fat as hell with glasses and messy hair. God damn it. I'm just kidding. It would actually look like, a large ass, goblin. More specifically, the one from yesterday, sort of. More like, last time. As it seems to be wielding a large axe and wearing a really small helmet for its actual head size. As it seems to be wearing some really scrappy armor. As the large ogre would basically, not ogre, I meant troll, would basically yell out to basically destroy everybody there in the village, as the monsters would start charging towards the area. As you would say this, specifically Bell, as you would say this. Alright guys, he would say, take them down, he would say, as after saying that, several of his heroic spirits would start charging in, including some of the random adventurers. As for Hessian Lobo would just be, nearby as you get ready in case of like, the fifth line being destroyed. That's where it would jump in and basically start slashing through every single monster. But unfortunately, these monsters are not going to, arrive towards, any of those, lines at all. As it would start, becoming a bloodbath, specifically for the monster side, as the monsters were instantly cut down by several of the adventurers, including some of his, heroic spirits, more specifically Melusine, Burgeist, and Morgan, as all three of them would basically start using some of their magic. Or more specifically, Magecraft in the case of in the case of Morgan. As Morgan would start, healing up some of the people nearby and also increasing their strength. And as for, for Burgess would start, using her blade to basically cut down some of the monsters. And as for Melusine, because, her, skills in combat are basically just like, that much, she would start slamming into, several of the monsters and start slashing them with her, scabbard gauntlet things. As for, nearby, we also see Europa as she would summon out, a partial form of, of Talos. As Talos' arms would start shooting off blasts of, I guess you can say magma, I can't remember. Either they're lasers or magma. As these shots would start being fired and would start, cutting through several of the monsters. And as for the Familias, they would start using magic to, to simple, wait for a second. This simple, enhancement of their bodies and some others. As while Bell is seeing this, he would notice a flying monster from up above. As after seeing that, he would say, take him down, Koyanskaya, he would say. As after saying that, Koyanskaya would say this. Hi, hi, she would say. As after saying that, she would summon out a few guns out of nowhere, as these guns seem to be floating. As she would tell these guns to basically fire at will. And so, these guns would fire and would start shooting down the monster off the sky. Or at least from the sky, and would basically fall down to the ground, instantly damaged. As for Koyanskaya, she's currently at, the fourth line. As she would say this. Well, that was easy, she would say. As we currently see, wait for a second. As we currently see Estrella basically, using her martial arts skills and with her sword to start, taking down some of the monsters that basically escaped. Or at least going through the sides, mostly stealthy ones. And as for, our certainly little, not really little, but let's just say, wait for a second. And a certain Hessian Lobo is finally taking action. As Hessian Lobo would sense a few monsters basically trying to, run towards, the area over there, more specifically towards, the gate. As Hessian Lobo would come out of nowhere from the shadows and would slice them in half, causing some of the monsters trying to, escape from Hessian Lobo to basically be cut down in an instant. As Hessian Lobo, or at least, Lobo in particular, would basically howl, causing everybody to just be confused. As thankfully, Hessian and Lobo basically just, disappear before anybody can see them. So, after doing so, Bell would say this. This fight is pretty much easy, he would say. As you would look over and would see the large troll, as the troll seems to be quite angry, knowing that he can't, well, uh, that he can't become a moderator on Discord. I'm just kidding. As the troll would just become a little bit mad as it would, start to whistle. After doing that whistle, a large wolf, or at least a dire wolf, would basically appear out of nowhere. As he would start riding on his back, as he would start, charging towards, the front line. As the front line would basically be destroyed by his slashes and the dog. As for the, his heroic spirits, they would start taking it down, and for, others, Bell would just, tell them to back off for now. As Bell would say this. Hey Gilgamesh, he would say. As Gilgamesh says this. Yeah, Bell, he would say. As he would say this. I want you to, to enhance their magic a little bit. Enhance their attacks immediately, he would say. As he would say this. Very well then, he would say. As after doing so, he would start using a bit of his magic to basically, heal up some of the injuries from, from Burgess to, Melusine and also, and also, wait for a second, and Morgan, as after being healed, they would start, activating their, their noble phantasms. Or more specifically, Morgan herself. As after setting up her noble phantasm, she would start started sitting down on a throne. A throne that basically came out of nowhere, as large pillars of darkness would basically appear out of nowhere as well. Each of them having lights, more specifically, lights that seem to be bluish in color. As after doing so, she would say this. Now, face my wrath, the queen of magic herself, she would say. Lordless Camelot. After saying that, she would crush her, she would basically, tighten her, hand into a fist, as after doing so, electricity would basically spread out of the, the large pillars, causing the dire wolf to basically fall to the ground in an instant, causing, also the rider, aka the large troll, to basically fall off his, horse. Or at least, sort of horse, or wolf. As it would start, yelling in, it would start yelling in pain after getting shocked by the, electricity, as it would fall down, destroyed. As she would say this. How easy, she would say, flicking her hair as it would start flowing in the wind. As after the large, troll was falling to the ground, basically, sort of dead, as Morgan would say this. Pathetic, she would say, as she would look over to Burgess, as she would say this. Grab the monster core, then we should, but before she can, they would start hearing, a large grumbling sound from up above, as they would see the large ceiling that was basically covering the entire, the entire floor, as it would start to crack, as a large goo-like substance would start falling out of it. As after doing so, a large hand would start to form from that goo. After doing so, a skull would start forming, as it would screaming out this terrifying voice. I would scream out, "Time to feast!" It would say, as everybody would look over, as everybody would basically get ready into their, battle stances, as some of them would start charging over there to basically fight off the monster. As for his heroic spirits, they would also charge, as Bo would say this. Well, that was unexpected, he would say, as he would look over to Emiya, as he would say this. Emiya, he would say, as he would say this. Yes, he would say, as he would say this. By my command seal, I order you to destroy that monster immediately. Use your noble phantasm, he would say, as after doing so, a bit of his command seal would start to disappear, and after doing so, Emiya would start getting a rush of power from it, as he would say this. Very well, master, he would say, as he would start charging towards, the monster, as he would say this. I am the bone of my sword, he would say, as he would start, running up the hand of the monster, as he would try to swat Emiya away, as he would say this. Now, as I pray, as he would jump towards, the head of the monster, as he would say, unlimited lost works, he would say, as he would shoot one bullet towards the forehead of the monster, and after doing so, the skull would be cracked from the, from the bullet, and after doing so, several spikes would come out of there, mostly looking like swords, as these swords would start bursting out of the skull and would crack the skull, and causing it to basically explode. After doing so, everybody would look from above and would see Emiya basically, falling from the sky, as Emiya would, do a superhero landing and would basically land down safely, as he would say this. That was easy, he would say. Too easy, he would say. As after saying that, the monster would start, going up again, or at least getting back up again, as the monster would scream out, saying, "You insolent!" As after saying that, he would say, "Fools!" He would say, as he would start scraping the ground with his forearm and would cause some of the, adventurers nearby to basically start flying off. After doing so, Emi would say this. "I knew it," he would say. As after saying that, he would start running towards to where Belle is. As after arriving back to Belle, he would say, "Master," he would say, as he would say this. "It seems so," he would say, as he would look towards the monster, as he would say this. "It seems to be much stronger than we thought," he would say, as he would say this. "Yeah, master." "So what are we supposed to do?" he would say, as he would say this. "I guess we have to do this then," he would say, as after saying that, he would start, setting up a magic circle, as he would say this, specifically Emiya. "Wait, are you," as he would say this. "Yes. I'm gonna be summoning another heroic spirit," he would say. And after saying that, both Emiya and also, Gilgamesh would just be wide-eyed, as he would say this. Specifically, Gilgamesh. "You certainly are a weird master," he would say. "But I do like it," he would say. As he would say this. Yeah. Anyway. "Now, let's take care of this," he would say. As after saying that, he would start doing the typical, fake Grand Order chant. And after doing the chant, a large stream of light would basically appear, as three figures would come out of the light. As one of the figures would say this. "Servant, alter ego. So you're my master then. Can't wait to take down those monsters that dare to try and defy us. The name's Melchulis," she would say, as a woman would basically appear. As when she said that, it would be revealed to be a woman. More specifically, a woman with purplish hair, as she seems to have some really weird ass, shoes. More specifically, these shoes seems to have blades, and these blades seem to be glowing a bluish color. As she seems to be wearing a straight jacket, mixed with a wedding dress. As after saying that, another person would appear, as she would say this. "Servant foreigner," she would say. As after saying that, it would be revealed to be. She seems to be a woman with whitish hair and wearing glasses, as her shield seems to be, having these. I don't really know what to call them, but they're basically what you see in, fences, where they basically have these intricate, bars on them. As she would say this. "My name is Josuke de Malloy," she would say, "and I am at your service," she would say, as a weird-looking doll seems to be floating, right beside her. As another woman would basically appear, as she would say this. "Servant, pretender," she would say, as she would basically stab a sword onto the ground, as she would basically stand in almost in, basically crossing her arms, as she would say this. As we see a woman with, a golden chest plate, and not only that, seems to be, having several faces, more specifically three, on her, I don't really know what to call it. It's basically like the loincloth, I guess you'd say. It's basically like this dress thing. As she would say this. "My name is Thespian. I am of the Pretender class. Now, may I ask, are you our master?" she would say. As Belle would say this. "Well then, yes I am," he would say. As he would say this. "Now, I ask of you to try and destroy that monster," he would say, as he would point towards the back, behind him, as you would see the large monster basically fighting off several of the adventurers. As Thespian would say this. "Very well," she would say, as she would summon out her, a large chariot. Wait for a second. as this chariot seems to be, being, um, how do I say this? Being like, how it works is basically like like this large ass skeletal dragon that seems to be the one that's pulling it. As after, getting onto it, she would say, "Now, let's take care of this," she would say. As after, flying off with her dragon, as for Melchorless, she would start, skiing on the ground with her, with her shoe blades. And as for her, aka, well, Josuke Malloy, she would say, "I'll be staying with you here, Master," she would say, as he would do it, as he would say this. "Very well, just guess," he would say, as she would say this. "Now, let's see how this little game of his," she would say, "will start," she would say. After saying that, we go back to, Melchorless and also, well, a Thespion. The reason why I'm calling her a Thespion is because, it's my, version of it. The other translations say that she's either, a Thespion, which I don't really like, so I'm just gonna call her, a Thespion, because it seems to roll off the tongue much better, in my opinion. As the Thespion would start wrapping around, the, the large monster with her staff. As the staff seems to be, grapes basically like, swirling around it. As these grapes will start wrapping around the monster, as these grapes will start glowing a reddish color. As for her dragon, the dragon would start burning the, the monster with its red electricity. As for Metroless, she would start using, water to basically, increase the attack of the, electricity, because remember, water basically conducts electricity, so it makes sense that it would become stronger. And after a while, it would start to cause the monster to growl out in pain as it would shoot out blasts of, basically like globs of like, of itself, I guess you could say. As several people would look at this as they would say, "What the hell is going on?" As, Monstrous would say this, "I'm just here to help out. After all, Master told me to help you out," she would say. As she would say, after saying that, she would start, creating slashes of water with her, shoes, as she would say this. "Now, let's take care of this," she would say. As she would start activating her noble phantasm. As she would start, swirling around the, the monster, creating a large whirlpool of water. After doing so, the monster would start being sucked into the waterfall. Or not really waterfall, I meant the, the tsunami. No, whirlpool I meant. As after doing so, she would say, "Now, take this," she would say. As after saying that, she would get ready to slice the monster with, her, I guess you could say, like, shoe sword. As she would say this. Wait for a second. She would say, "Saravati," she would say. "Meltdown," she would say. As after doing so, she would slice the monster in half. After doing so, the monster would be flown off its, body. As for, a Thespion, she would say this. "Now, it's my turn," she would say. As she would start flying up into the, air, because remember, it's basically a closed space because, the whole, like, ceiling thing. And after flying all the way up towards the, the ceiling, she would say, "Now." As she would start creating electricity, as her sword would start glowing electricity as well. As they would start slamming against the ground, not really ground, but more like, start charging towards the upper half of the monster. As she would say, "Take this." As she would say, "Hecatic wheel," she would say. As after saying that, she would slice in half the, upper body, causing it to explode in a, in a gore fest. I mean, technically not gore because, there's no blood or anything of that sort, but technically there is blood because the blood of that monster is basically black. And after doing so, she would fly down with her chariot. And after doing so, she would kneel down as she would say this. "Too much mana consumption," she would say. "But still, that was certainly effective," she would say. As after saying that, she would unsheath her sword. As after doing so, she would say this. "Well then, I should probably go back to Master," she would say. And after saying that, both of them would basically disappear, transforming back into their spirit form. And after arriving back, Izuku would say this. Not Izuku, I meant Bell, he would say this. "Ha, you're back," he would say. As Hephaestion would say this. "Yeah, Master. Well, that was easy, she would say, as she would basically, put her sword onto the ground. As for, Meltrilla, she would say this. She would say this. Yeah, that was pretty much easy, she would say. Not even a threat, she would say. As he would say this. Now, as he would start looking around and would see the, mayor, as he would say this. Hey, mayor, I meant. As he would drop down from the, from the wall, as he would, land on his feet, as the mayor would say this. Bell, he would say, as he would say this. We finished up the job. We finished up the job. Those things were not even, those things were not even the problem. The real problem was that creature, he would say, as he would say this. You mean the black mud, he would say, as he would say this. Black mud, he would say, as he would say this. Yeah, that thing. It's not even a monster. It's more like some abomination, he would say, as he would say this. Mind telling me a little bit more about this thing, he would say, as he would say this. Sure, come, he would say. As after saying that, he would start telling, his heroic spirits, and including, some of his other heroic spirits which came back, would start following him, as one of them would say this. Wait a minute, said Emiya, as he would look towards Metrolisp, as he would start getting, vague flashbacks, as he would say, oh god, not her, he would say to himself, as Metrolisp would just look at him, as she would say this. Why does he seem so familiar, she would say, as she would just shake her head, as she would say this. Whatever, she would say, as after doing so, Bell and the rest of his heroic spirits would finally arrive at the mayor's office, as Bell would say this. So, mind telling me what were those creatures, he would say, as he would say this. Well then, he would just sigh as he would explain. Jusuke would also listen too, as she would basically be with the other heroic spirits. Basically like, just doing her own thing. As the mayor would explain, apparently this black mud, or the black mud beast, has been terrorizing the place for a while now, and apparently this beast is made out of this weird substance which seems to be similar to mud but not really. Apparently this thing is able to basically transform into anything, just as long as it has a right amount of fear, apparently. The reason why is because this black mud is basically formed from fear, or at least that's what the people think. As after Bell gets some, information about the thing, Bell would basically tell him that it's okay. After all, this thing isn't already done, so, after all. As after saying that, he would say this. It's after all our job to basically take care of the, scum of the earth, he would say. Especially with monsters like those, he would say. As he would say this. Wonderful. Well then, I'm guessing you're pretty tired after your, little trip. Not really trip, but more like that little battle of yours, he would say. As he would say this. Yeah, I guess so, he would say. As he would start to yawn, as he would say this. You sort of remind me of my grandson, he would say. As he would say this. Really, he would say. As he would say this. Yes, he would say. I almost forgot about his accent. As he would say this. Yes, you sort of remind me of my grandson. Back in... I was about to say Shaznaya. No. Let's just say like a random village, as he would say this. Yes, back in my hometown. I remember them growing up. And after I decided to leave to govern this little town of ours in the 52nd floor, my grandson decided to go to a different town. More specifically, a town nearby known as, Kislev. And if you get that reference, well, you probably know that, place, as you'd say this. I certainly love that place, especially the god there. The god is certainly quite helpful and quite merciful, he would say, as he would say this. Really, he would say, as he would say this. Yes, his name is quite interesting. He is known as the bear god, he would say, as he would say this. Bear god, you say, he would say, as he would say this. Yes, quite a wonderful guy. Sometimes a bit of a drunken and sometimes prefers, let's just say in the company of girls, but still, he is quite helpful. He's actually a friend of like Ishtar, he would say. After saying that certain name, let's just say Gilgamesh would start getting a Vietnam flashback. As he would say, Oh god, not her, he would say, as Belle would look at him as he would say this. Gilgamesh, he would say, as he would say this. Oh, nothing, master. Let's just say I'm not really into her, he would say, as he would say this. Ah, I see, he would say. As after saying that, he would look towards the mirror as he would say this. As after saying that, he would say this. Oh, I see, then Gilgamesh, he would say, as he would say this. Yeah, let's just say I don't really like her at all, he would say. As the old man, as in the leader of this, colony, I guess you could say, or village in this case, he would say, anyway, just take a nap. After all, you do deserve it. You did save our, lovely little, village over here, he would say, as he would say this. Thank you, thank you very much, he would say, as he would say this. Don't mention it. After all, I'm certainly gonna have a certain little party to have here. Especially in your honor, he would say. As after saying that, he would say this. Cool, he would say. As after saying that, Bell and the rest of his heroic spirits would start leaving to go back outside. Currently outside. Outside is currently just a complete, fuck shit fest, to say the least. Everybody's basically partying, basically drinking, some alcohol, basically having a lot of fun. As he would see this. Whoa, that is, as one of them would say this. Hey, Bell, said, a person behind them. As after looking back, he would see Finn, as he would say this. We did it, he would say. We defeated that monster, he would say, as he would say this. Yeah, it seems so, he would say. As after saying that, he would say this. Hey, you want to have a drink with us, he would say, as he would say this. No, I'm kind of tired, he would say. As after saying that, he would say this. Oh, yeah, I could definitely see why. As after saying that, he would say this. Yeah, I'm gonna get to sleep now. As after saying that, he would tell some of his heroic spirits to help him out with the tent. As after finishing up the tent, he would start, slowly getting into into his, sort of sleeping bag. But before he can, he would hear somebody opening the zipper of his, not really a zipper, but more like opening up his, little tent. As he would say, who is it? He would say, I'm about to go to sleep. But before he can, he would see a pretty, really liquored up, pet, as you would say this. She would say, come here, my little bunny rabbit, she would say, as you say this. Wait, I'm too sleep. As before he can, he was tackled to the ground, as he would say this. What are you doing, Bet? He would say, as she would say this. Oh, come on, let me give you a reward, she would say. After all, you did save us, she would say. As she would slowly take off her clothes, as he would say, oh god. And we basically end off the episode right off here. So, yeah, we're gonna be leaving this episode right off here. So, yeah. So, anyway, I hope you liked the video. Comment and subscribe, and pray in the comments, or pray in the comments, or basically, like the video for Bell's, safety of his pelvis. Because it's definitely not gonna be okay after this night. So, yeah, I hope you liked the video. Comment and subscribe. And I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye.